Hello everyone, and welcome back to Alteryx Tutorials. I am Mark Thompson. Today's session we're going to be doing weekly challenge number 212, and it talks about the NFL draft. And the NFL draft from 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19. And we have these data files. They're all the same in terms of how they look. And it's got the year, what they picked, what team, who the player was, and how that player has graded out now that they've been playing. Along with that, we have a table that shows the values of each of those draft picks. So pick number one's worth 3,000, 2, 2,600, and right on down. But you'll notice that it goes almost in rounds, right? So there's 32 teams, and it goes first round, second round, third, fourth, fifth. And so it's structured in a way that's not really super convenient. And that's the primary hitch of today's challenge, is trying to figure out how we can best take this. And what we want to identify is what team overall has done the best job of picking players. So they've spent, if you will, or they've used a 3,000 for a certain draft and how well they grade out. Along with that, I'm going to be showing you, now I did this a while back, so I'm going to be showing you my original method for doing it. Notice that I called it the brute force method. And instead, we're going to be using this arrange tool that I mentioned. Ultimately, what we want to end up with is we want to pick the top 3 teams from each year and who did the best in terms of where they picked and how those players graded out. Now that we've kind of laid that out, let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing we want to do is we want to talk about getting data in a format that we can use. Now, if you take a look at these drafts, you can see that these are all actually in an identical format. So that's pretty easy. We just feed them into a union tool. And here we go. And they all, you can see, I do this, you've watched my videos before, you know I use the manually configure fields setting when I'm doing a union. Typically, there are times when you don't, but typically. And you can see that they all line up nice and neat here, and we come out with 1,272 records. And there's going to be a couple of things that we look at along the way, some criteria up here. Because the draft picks, the draft picks themselves go down as far as 224. That's the highest draft pick, or the lowest draft pick, really. And anything after 224, we're only going to give it a value of 2. So when you go and you look at the NFL years, you can see that we've got more than 224. Now, I showed you the union. Now let's talk about this draft picks, because this table is not exactly set up to be real convenient. I understand that you're going through round 1 and round 2 and round 3, and it makes sense from that perspective, but not from matching our data up. So what we want to end up with is something that looks like this, where it's just 2 columns, and it's pick 1 through 224 and what that value is. And as I said, down at pick 224, anything after that just gets a value of 2. It's all the same. Now, when I first did this, I did a real brute method approach to this, where I was taking and I was using a select tool multiple times and said, okay, give me the first 2 columns, then the next 2, then the next, and the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. And then just union them all together. And this is actually one time when you would want to do a configuration by position. Because when you do a, manually configured, it looks really ugly. It looks like that. So this is one of the times when you would actually use your configuration by field, or by position, by position. Even doing that, this is ugly. All right, there's a much better way. And that is a tool that you probably don't use a whole lot, but it's really cool once you start to figure out how to use it. And that is the arrange tool. And you'll see here we've got these arrange and we've got pick, and we've got them in 2 columns. Now, just to play around with this arrange, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to play with it here. And this is nothing more than what I just took and copied it and isolated this piece of it. And what we've got here, we've got these fields, and we want to add columns to it. And we're going to come here and we're going to add columns. And it needs a name, so let's say pick order. And then do we want a description field along with this column, or do we just want the column? Well, if we add a new description, and we take description, say, from the field names, and then we say description header, right? And then we're going to come here, and I don't even need to hold the control. I can just go click, 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 click on my various picks. And when I tell it OK, notice how it fills in a description and a pick order. And what that is effectively doing is each one of these rows represents one of those columns that we talked about. Now, we do want to add another column, so we're going to come over here, we're going to say add, and this time I want to show you what goes on if I come here and here, 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 and there, and then I'll say pick value. And on this one, I'm going to say none. I don't want a description. Don't give me a description field. Just give me those. And I tell it OK. And now you see I don't have this description field. Now, mind you, I may look at this and go, you know what? I don't really need this field, but let's go ahead and run this, and you'll see what you get. So when I come down here and I pull this up, you'll see that this is what I get. Now let's sort this. It might help make it just a little bit clearer. And I'm going to say pick order, and I'm going to do ascending pick order. So I do that, and now you can see that it's taking that first column. So if you'd have said, for example, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to round 1, round 2, round 3. I could do the rest, but you get the idea. Round 1, round 2, round 3, etc. But the reality is, you know what? I don't even need that column. So let's go ahead and delete. And then I run this, and I really get just these 2 columns that I want. And that is the key to it. Now, just for grins, I'm going to show you something else here. And I'm going to get rid of, say, those 4. So we're going to come over here to row, and we're going to delete those. Now what I want to show you is I'm going to pick in value 2, and I'm going to say F2, and I'm going to repeat it. Now you wouldn't use it in this case, but you might have something where you want to repeat the same value. And if I did that and I go run, now what it looks like is 1, 2, 3, 4, except for when it gets to 32, notice that it restarts. It restarts. That's about it. I'm going to stop giving a little tutorial on the arrange now and go back to our challenge. And note that now we have all of these in 224 order. The next thing we want to do and what we want to look at is, okay, let's bring these together. Now we know these players from all these years. Now we've got the values and when they were picked. Let's go ahead and join them, and we're going to join them on pick. And we don't need pick in there twice, so let's remove it. And we can see that this join now looks like this. And we can probably position this right about here so we can start to see our data here, because we're only now we're getting down to this portion of the flow right here. And we've got all of these picks, and we've got them by year. Well, with that, we want to say, okay, remember this little caveat up here that says any picks after the number 224, we'll just assign it a value of 2. And so we need to break those off because they didn't join, because we only went to 224 on our joins. Pick 224, right? And so we've now got these various ones here, these high picks. There's 152 of them that showed up after 224. We're going to assign a value of 2 to these. Some of these guys who were low picks never even graded out. And we're gonna union them back together so that we've got every player. We're not leaving any players off. We've got the players that joined, and these are the players that didn't join that were in that ranking above 224. And now we union them back together. And you can see I do a manual configuration on this, and you can see where they're at. Next thing we want to do is we're going to summarize. Remember, we're trying to do this by team. And so we say, okay, we want to group by team, and we want to group by year. So we've got the year, the team, and then we're going to sum the pick value, and we're going to sum the grades for those teams by year. The next thing we want to do is talk about efficiency, and this is given to us up above, and it says, hey, for each year, what's the highest draft efficiency? And they give us the formula. Draft efficiency is calculated sum of the player grades divided by sum of the draft pick value. Well, we are now in a position where we've got those sums. Some of the pick value, some of the grade. And so we apply that, and now we've got an efficiency. Then we sort that, and we put it in order. And then I did this ranking, and you don't necessarily need to, but I put this ranking on here just on the case. You don't want to have to go through 160 rows and make sure that that these efficiency values aren't the same. They're not likely. We went out to 6 digits, but there's a chance. So I use this order ranking, and I've done it in other ones where it ranks for each year, right? It gives us a ranking by year. And then we filter and say, I only want the top 3. By the way, if I got rid of this, it gives me the same value. It gives me the same value. Here we are, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Notice I'm capturing the first n rows, the first 3 rows by year. And there's our top 3 teams for each year. All right, this has been Mark Thompson, and these are Alteryx tutorials. If you like what you saw, please hit like, please hit share, and of course, we always welcome your comments. We always welcome your comments. We will see you next time. Have a great day, everybody.